have to excuse myself. So the first thing I have to do is probably the most boring talk you will hear, or the most technical at least. But they asked me to have this talk, which I'm very happy about. So first I have a question to you. Who has heard about Bitcoin before? Who owns Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency? Nice. Who knows how the technology behind Bitcoin works, the so-called blockchain? Okay. So that's where it's a lot about today, what I want to talk about, how the blockchain works, because I think it's probably the most transformative technology at this point in time. I think at least it's comparable to the invention of the internet, even though it's something which works on top of the internet, but I think it's as revolutionary as the internet itself. There's a lot of speculation, I think, about Bitcoin, at least in many. If you could just a bit more quiet, then I can manage. I don't need this, so it's not so important. On two sides there's speculation. First, on the crypto market. So Bitcoin actually rose in the last year from 1,000 euros to 16,000 euros, which makes a lot of people very suspicious of it. So that's the other speculation. When I talk to people, they are like, oh, Bitcoin is a scam, Bitcoin is a pyramid scheme, and so on, which is not true. So the revolutionary thing about Bitcoin is the technology which which underlies, and I will to talk about the possibilities what this technology can do, which is called the blockchain. It's pretty important, I think, to understand what that is, and for that I will show you a small video.
Are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside the blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the genesis block. Now, let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks, because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves.
Exactly. Yes, and this is, I think, where did you go, my little presentation? Yeah, and especially what he said at the end, this is the revolutionary part. So, in short again, it's like we don't need intermediaries anymore, right? We don't need a bank anymore to make sure that if I give you one, that you will receive one and not more than one, and that it's pretty much untamperable. So you cannot really hack it. I mean, there have been a lot of you can hack some exchanges, but you cannot mess with the blockchain. Not yet. Nobody found out how to mess with the blockchain itself. So, and what he pointed out at the end is these smart contracts. So you can not only like transfer a number amount from one P2P, from one node in the network to another, but you can actually put whatever information within that. So you can actually make your money intelligent. And the question also is about like what maybe comes up here at a certain point. What is money actually? So I think the closest idea for how I try to picture money is energy. So it's kind of, I mean, if you look at the euro, it's also kind of it's a piece of paper, and only because we give that thing a certain value, which we all agree on, somehow, we can use it as something very powerful. Like it's a 500 euro bill is much more powerful than the actual value I have of it, right? And this is because we all agree that 500 euros is maybe 2 days of work or 4 days of work, and or maybe for some other people even longer. So, and here with that technology, you have actually the possibility to make intelligent money, and that means you can give this now all kind of attributes. And there have been some nice projects I wanted to show you. Yeah, that was my initial, the journey of Bitcoin. This slide is like a month old. There they were like, yay, we reached $10,000. So now we're at 16,000. It's insane. So this speculation is really one thing, and you can take part of it or like it or not. But rather if you like it or if you take part in it, the technology behind it, I think, is really revolutionary. Yeah, and so we can really call these things like Bitcoin and other currencies like this, they are actually user-generated currencies. So if we all agree here that we want to have a Digital Stories Lab coin, and we all agree to give that thing a value, it will be a currency. And there are several projects which are actually going directly in this direction, who built a network where you can put in very easily your own currency. Like for example the Bancor network or the Ardor network. They are all in construction at the moment, so it's not there yet that you can really like just start and doing your own currency. But Bancor, for example, they are aiming at a chat protocol, where you can do with Messenger or Telegram. You can actually launch your own digital currency in 5 minutes. So they didn't release that. They released the feature yet, but it's not fully working. So that will be big in the next few years. Yeah, how does it work? We had just that. And so I just want to quickly point out the 3 use cases, so that you maybe understand a little more in depth what you can actually do, and then quickly talk about what we could imagine. And the ones of you who have heard my talk on yesterday, this is actually exactly the technology that these people in the future are going to rely on, and where they agree that they will distribute all the resources equally among their users, and they will use it out of one big pot, and they will, everything they earn they will put in that pot and then take it out. So that is easily designable today. So how other people, that's still fictional, it will hopefully come true at some point, but there are people who are quicker and maybe also smarter than me, who have already progressed on that end. Like for example, there is the fair coin. The fair coin is a currency which is made for fair trade, especially for fair trade. So with every fair coin, there is a distribution of the part who goes directly to the people who have produced it. And one other cool thing about digital currencies is if you don't need to wait. Like now, if I go in a store and I give, or a cinema is actually a better example. If I go to the cinema and if I pay the ticket, then the cinema will make the reports at the end of the month, and then they give that so and so much money to the distributor, and the distributor will make a report at the end of the year, end of the quarter, and then give the money to the producer. Here it can be also all automated in real time. I pay €1 and 50 cents go there, 20 cents go there, 30 cents go there immediately. So there's also no intermediaries who you don't need to pay any accountants, you don't need to wait for your money, and you don't have anybody who can take away something. Because the thing is also, this thing is 100% transparent, the blockchain. You can always see where the money goes and why. So that's the Faircoin project. Here they have described a little bit more in depth what they are funding in, like forests and solar energy. There's also one other coin called the solar coin, for example. What they are doing is they just say, okay, if you buy our coin, we take that money and buy solar panels with it and batteries, and then we put the money we make with the energy back into our system. So it's actually backed with real goods. Whereas Bitcoin, there is just there is no physical thing behind it, like the farms, the mining farms, which calculate these hashes, and the blockchain itself.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Just how flexible are those rules? As I understand, like if you say like, okay, so you have the Bitcoin kind of decide for you, like 30% goes there, 20% there, 10% there. It means beforehand that there are already a set of rules, right?
Exactly.
So how do you change those rules, and how flexible is it?
That's, I think you can imagine it as any other algorithm. It depends upon the design. Meaning, like the problem, the problem is a little bit that you will have to incorporate all future changes when you press enter, when you release the algorithm.
Yeah.
And until then, you can just really say, okay, you know, we make votes about that, so and so much percentage go there, and if 50% plus vote like this, then if-thens, you know, you can put as many if-thens in there as you want.
Yeah.
There have been points in time, and many of them already, where people run into problems they cannot fix anymore, because most blockchains don't have voting mechanisms. Bitcoin doesn't have a voting mechanism or anything. It's just the way it is. So what then happens is a hard fork. People say, okay, we would like to have that, but a little bit slightly different. So what they do is they take code and a lot of times the previous blocks and just duplicate it with that one specific change. For example, big question now Bitcoin Cash was released, and the big question there was Bitcoin was only having 1 megabyte size of this hash, of this block. The block was only 1 megabyte. And then they said, we need a bigger one because it's too slow like this. We need 8 megabyte. And then a few people said, like, no, but we want to keep that Bitcoin. A few people said, no, we want to have the new Bitcoin. So they mirrored the whole blockchain, made this one change, and now there's Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. And if you own Bitcoin, at the moment of the hard fork, you will own the exact amount of Bitcoin Cash. Because the whole thing is mirrored. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but this is the way how you solve exactly these problems.
Yeah.
Oh, is this stop or 5?
5.
5 with or without questions?
Without 10 questions.
Okay, so I have 5 and questions. Great. So, especially for us or for you, hopefully very interesting is this project, because it has to do with media production, and it's also already in action.
Singular is a sci-fi epic adventure television series about the path the world could take as decentralization scales and artificial intelligence emerges, leading to conscious systems that guide us into a technological singularity, propelling the human race, us Homo sapiens, into the next level of human evolution, what we're calling Homo transcendus. You'll be able to watch Singular through our transaction video-on-demand portal, singulardtv.com. By utilizing decentralized methodologies and applications, Singular DTV is innovating across all facets of the entertainment industry, from how we fund our projects to how we share them with the world. Singular DTV's rights, revenue, and royalty management platform will address today's lack of transparency and fundamentally change the prominence of creative accounting in the entertainment industry. This rights management platform will empower creators by giving them back control over their creative output. Singular's partnered with venture production studio Consensus Systems, who are programming this new decentralized world on Ethereum's revolutionary blockchain, a technology where you can create your vision of a more prosperous future, a more interactive and connected society, a decentralized world of transparency and incorruptible systems. It's societal engineering at its most innovative and bold, at its most altruistic. Singular DTV is a unique, tokenized ecosystem made up of a centrally organized governance component as well as a decentralized autonomous organizational component. This new structure is called the Singular DTV Code, which stands for Centrally Organized Distributed Entity. Its tokens, called singles, allow the user to benefit from and maneuver through the Singular DTV ecosystem. This is Zach Laveau, co-creator of the television series Singular, saying thank you, and please visit our website at singulardtv.com to learn more. We need your support in launching the first ever decentralized television series.
Kaboom. Yeah, so there are a lot of these projects at the moment out there, and how that works most of the time is better than my computer here. Not full screen for you anymore.
Maybe it's already open.
Ah, it's somewhere else open. No, it's on. Oh, it is. How that works is that they actually have invented this thing called ICO, initial coin offering, which is compared to IPO, initial public offering. When a company goes to the stock market, it's called IPO. So the ICO is kind of a way of crowdfunding. They say, okay, we're gonna distribute 500 million coins in the next month, and one coin will be 20 cents or 2 euros or 5 cents or whatever. And our project is like this, you know, like for example, Singular DTV, we're gonna make a decentralized network for movie producers and royalty management platform. If you believe in that project, you can buy a few coins for 5 cents or for 500 or for $5,000. And that's basically it. So we can, and what the only thing is, my point is,
That's my question. What can we learn from this?
yes, we can learn actually from this that we can design anything we want with the help of blockchain, and we don't need we don't need anyone's permission. We don't need a new government to make a new system. We can start our system today if we have a group of people who is agreeing that that has value, and if we provide a service or a mechanism which can help us get us food and shelter, for example. Like, we really want to try that within, like, push it forward with our project as well. So really kind of buy property and let people live there and grow our own food and move away from wage labor, because I think this is a huge turnoff, like to need to go to work for money to have living and food and spend so much time of your week and your day. It's like, it should be the other way around, you know, I should do what I want to do, and then, that from my motivation, things should derive, and that's actually where we have to move anyway, because machines will take away our jobs, the big money pot's going to get bigger and the smaller one's going to get smaller. So I think if we wait for the government to solve that problem, we can wait a long time, and this is a possibility to take things up in your own hands. That's what I learned from this, and I don't know, what do you learn from this? So, any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
I have a question.
And there is a question from Silva. Yeah, go
Yeah.
on.
So my question is, basically, I was thinking all the way when you were talking about the fact that one of the issues we're facing is the way we want to monetize our projects, all of us. And is there a way, when internet artist, that's just use this term, maybe it's not like the right term that we should be using. But let's say we're internet artists, right? And we need a way to kind of put a value on what we're doing, because nobody's going to pay for, we have this issue. I guess everyone knows what I'm talking about. So how can we use that to recreate the system, the audiovisual system?
Very good question. I think it's like if you think about an ICO or something or a coin as as kind of a crowd, it's a little bit like we could like say, okay, we should need. I think the first thing we would need is a common ground, like internet artists. Okay, let's say internet artists, and then we make the internet artist coin, and then we say like this coin is for people who make art in the internet, and everyone who applies for that, maybe say like you need to have a system like whoever, let's say whoever has published something in the internet before can say he wants to have 100 coins, and then he gets the 100 coins, and then you give half of the coins away to the internet artist, and the half of the other ones you sell. So now the problem is there's not a big service for the public. Like you need to make it somehow. The public needs to have a value from that, a rising value. So you could maybe curate it. Then you again have the middle.
Art has a public value, right?
Yeah.
Has a
So
public
so you could. What I want to say is, I think if you make it more sharp and make it a little bit more narrow, you have a little bit higher potential of reaching people and maybe putting in money there. But if you just put it like this, then you could just collect money from people who like to buy art and like art on the internet. There's a very interesting concept called Blantoid. Blantoid is like an android, not a mixture of man and machine. It's a mixture of plant and machine. And how that works, for example, is a Blantoid. You can apply for the Blantoid and say like, I want to do this or that and that project. And then you have a community vote, and whoever gets the most votes gets the whole pot. So you also you have to crowdfund it. And whenever 10,000 euros are reached, and whoever has the most votes, tack, this person gets the 10,000 euros. And then the Blantoid duplicates. So there are new Blantoids. That's why it's called Blantoid, because nobody has to do anything, right? You just go to the... People can pledge there, they can send coins to the Blantoid, they can vote, and whoever has the most votes when a certain amount of money is reached, bloop, this person gets the money automatically and the thing splits in two. So that you could maybe, for example, put out a few internet artists Blantoids. But I think we're in a time now where we have a lot of possibilities of rethinking our system, especially with a technology like this. There are many different ways, and the good ways, to find the good ways, I think that's the challenge of the next few years and of the years to come. Because we don't need tax office anymore, we don't need bank anymore with this. There's no way anybody can prevent you from, like, you know, Mr. Putin.
Yeah, but you need electricity though.
You need electricity, yes.
A lot of it as well.
Not necessarily. Bitcoin has this problem, but this problem is already solved. Like because Bitcoin has still this challenge of this mining challenge. So whoever gets the hash first gets that's how Bitcoins are actually created. When they whoever finds the next block, they get a certain amount of Bitcoins. But the next coin, for example, has solved it completely different. They said, okay, we take the power from the computer of our users, and you can choose how much space or how much capacity you give to them, or you can also not give anything to them. And whenever a new next block is created, it is distributed equally among all users. So there's no competition, because it doesn't matter where the block is created, because it's distributed to everybody equally. And that's actually the big chance for me for these new currencies, because you can design how it operates, and you can design if it makes sense to kind of exploit somebody or to have competition, or if it doesn't make sense.
But do you think in the future there will be many different sort of coins?
Yes.
Already today?
Already we have more than 1,000 cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
And this will rise. And of course there's a lot of shit, like in every, there are so many shit internet projects, there's so many shit supermarkets, And there are some good ones, and it's the same with these coins, right? And it's up in everybody to find their coin, I would say. I think maybe in 20 years, maybe you will have that coin and you will have your community through that. I will have a different one. You guys will have whatever, you know, like I think it's going to be more diverse in the future than today.
I bet
Yes.
you.
Sorry, but Philo was like
Sorry.
from the beginning waiting.
What we need right now is innovation, and we need to figure out to see what is possible. And like we cannot even imagine now what these currencies can do and how can we design them to be useful. So what do you think are good ways to encourage that kind of experimentation? Should we just leave it to the people who have hacking skills? Should we be teaching this in primary schools? Should we be doing hackathons or digital currency labs partnered with film festivals? What should we do?
Well, I think, like, of course, to execute a blockchain network and all that, it needs some skills. But as I also told you, that there are projects on the way where you don't need programming skills anymore. And I think it's the most helpful thing is to think about how we want to live in the future and what system would encourage that way of living. Because now we have a competitive system where the devil, in Germany we have a saying that the devil always shits on the biggest pile. You know, so if you have a lot of money and you make plus 10%, you have, you know what I mean, exponential growth of wealth. So the question is, I think what would help is to put a lot of different people, like we are, together and make maybe a lab, as we did maybe the last 2 days, and then think in a disciplinary context, maybe also bring in some people from finance or bring people from philosophy, and then really think about, okay, how do we want to live, and what could game designers, I think, is very important. How could we encourage a way of living we all would like to live? And then I'm sure we will find that group who would love that coin, and that group who would love that coin, because I might don't want to live like you, and you don't maybe want to live like me, but then the next question would be, what would be the common ground? You know, like, and for example, in my sci-fi story, there are these people who all say we want to live on a sustainable ground. They say we can interchange our currencies because we are okay with you. We kind of put you in the same network. So I think it's exchange, interdisciplinary exchange, and yeah, teaching in primary schools, I love it, you know, and everywhere else. It's because it's an empowering tool.
Okay, we have time for last question, and there was also a question there. Sorry, guys, but we're running out of time. Maybe we can talk after the presentation.
Yeah, I'll still be here the whole day.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was just curious because I guess it's a matter of trust as well for people to want to engage with these new projects. And I was just thinking that it could be one of the challenges that now we kind of know how to, more or less know how to verify certain sources or check, and we are used to a certain system of, I don't know, certification. So how do a person who would like to engage in it actually can establish this set of rules of how to check whether this is how you call it a ship project or not, for instance? How do we avoid this?
Well, it's, what is it? No, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, at the moment you just, it's like a lot about the team. You look like who is in it, and also like, do they solve a problem which I kind of understand, or I think it really is a problem. For example, there are casino coins, you know, like we make gambling better and more safe. I don't care. But there are also like science coins who say like we're gonna fund independent science projects or biotech projects away from the pharmaceutical industry, and then it's a little bit like, you know, Kickstarter project. If I think like, hey, that makes sense for me, then I can invest in it. And then that's on the speculative side, but in a few years I think it will be about, does anyone use it? And then I guess if all your friends are using it, then it makes sense because you're in that circle. That's kind of the, so I need to break.
Thank you very much.